State fiscal planning. It's the only topic Alaskans enjoy less than a hot oil enema. We would rather talk about literally anything else, and yet it's harder to avoid these days than moose on the Glen. Just about every day there's a new article, opinion piece, or event where Alaskans can unite to fire up those collective blame throwers. And all of this has got people's attention. In a recent survey, a full 92% of Alaskans agreed that talking about taxes, the permanent fund, and turning schools into soup kitchens is starting to harsh their decriminalized mellow. But despite all the interest, the legislature can't seem to agree on much of anything, except how much they hate the governor's plan and that spending is too damn high. So let's take a look at the legislature's plan. Guys, hey, where's the plan? There's no plan? Oh, there's no plan. Now, in case you've been busy catching up on Game of Thrones, Alaska's got a bit of a fiscal problem. And while some blame the recent collapse in oil prices, the problem is actually bigger than that. This is UAA economist Dr. Gunnar Knapp laying it down.
Hi, my name's Gunnar Knapp. Ever since oil started flowing through the pipeline, oil revenues have paid for most of state government. Now, the basic problem we have is that the era when we can rely on oil to pay for most of state government is basically coming to an end. And there's two reasons for it. One is that oil prices have collapsed. And a second reason, which is a longer term reason but just as important, is that North Slope oil production is declining, and it's projected to decline farther.
For a little perspective, that's like telling Chuck from Big Lake he's going to have to cut down from a 12-pack of PBR to 1 brew a day, forever. And that's a reality many Alaskans are having trouble coming to grips with. Now, earlier this year, as some of you may have read, Standard & Poor's downgraded the state's bond rating, which I realize most people could really give a shit about. But it's important, because Standard & Poor's is one of the major bond rating agencies, and bond rating agencies, well, they roll the testicles of major corporations and governments around in their massive hands, like so many toasted walnuts. And when they squeeze, important people wince. Because their job is to basically tell everyone if you've got your fiscal shit together. And if you don't, like Alaska right now, well, they say things like this.
The negative outlook continues to reflect our opinion that if lawmakers do not enact significant fiscal reforms during its 2016 legislative session, Alaska's downward rating transition will likely persist.
Why the sense of urgency? Let's rewind the clock to opening day of the legislative session with a message from David Teal, the Director of Legislative Finance.
We're running deficits of roughly $3.5 billion a year. And those deficits are expected to drain our reserves by 2020. So we've got 3 years after this one. You're going to have to probably take some action.
Normally, the Finance Committee has one staffer assigned to periodically check to make sure Teal is still running a pulse. That clip was Teal standing in a puddle of kerosene with his clothes on fire. So when he says you need to take some action, it's time to stop kissing babies and hop to it. Now, the CBR, the Constitutional Budget Reserve, and Earnings Reserve that Mr. Teal mentioned are the state's two main savings accounts. And we are hemorrhaging money from those savings at a rate of $10 million per day. Every day. Put another way, for every dollar the state makes right now, we're spending 4. Anyone that's ever lost a job knows how quickly that stresses you out. And the scenario that's got everyone sweating bullets is that if we spend away all of those savings in a few short years, we can kiss the dividend goodbye forever and look forward to higher taxes and far less effective government. So, what to do? This is a message which most Alaskans have had for the legislature.
Cut it! Cut it to the bone!
A lot of Alaskans are under the impression that state spending has gotten out of control. But listen to what Mr. Teal told legislators.
That's a $2.3 billion budget cut in the last 4 years. That's 30%. Does the public know that? They think we're growing.
And here's another fact that'll probably blow your mind. When you correct for inflation and population growth, spending on agency operations is just about the lowest it's been in state's history. And they have made those cuts at an impressive rate. So, and you might want to sit down for this one, the legislature has actually done a pretty damn decent job of holding the line on spending and cutting. I know, right? And that's why this is not like a bad hairdo, which we can simply cut our way out of. You could literally fire every single person that works for the state, and you'd still have over $1.5 billion deficit. The fact is, the fiscal gap has actually grown since the massive cuts made last year. That's not to say there's not still a place to cut, but the problem is really on the revenue side. Now, for the last 35 years, Alaskans have gotten their government for free. Thanks, major oil producers. And yet, according to a recent survey, 56%, over half of Alaskans, think the state taxes they pay are either too high or just about right. What? $0. Yeah, that's about right. And as a bonus, Alaska cuts each and every one of us a check every year. Free government and money from the government. That kind of socialism would make even the Scandinavians uncomfortable. We spent $1.4 billion in dividends last year, more than the state paid for education. And Alaskans have gotten rather used to that, particularly in rural Alaska, where the dividend makes up a substantial portion of a family's income. It's like going to a coffee shop where the coffee is free and the barista tips you on the way out. It'd be great, but that's generally not how the world works. I mean, I wish it did, but it kind of did. And, well, it doesn't anymore, but, well, I wish it did. And that brings us back to our main topic here, fiscal planning. It's not a question of how we pay for little Bobby's school this year or next, because we have a bit of savings. But right now, it's like the bank is foreclosing on the farm and the legislature's clipping coupons. What we're talking about here is a complete redesign of how we budget and pay for state government. We're talking about a plan to get us from here, where we budget like degenerate gamblers on crazy commodity price swings, to something more sustainable, where we know roughly how we're going to pay for government moving forward. So, how do you do that? Well, this was Dr. Knapp's message to the Senate Finance Committee just a few days ago.
We'll have a smoother economic transition if we significantly reduce this deficit this year and make real choices about how we're going to reduce the rest. I think the critical thing is we've got to reduce uncertainty and build confidence about our economic future.
Governor Walker, love him or hate him, has at least offered a plan which does just that. By balancing a reduced budget against increased revenues means he's included at least 5 things for everyone to hate. And that takes some balls. But if you were to ask S&P, I'm sure they'd say his walnuts are headed in the right direction. A for effort, Billy! Now, any real plan must pass, like a giant kidney stone, through the halls of the Alaska legislature. And they haven't taken so kindly to the governor's plan.
The Senate is the Senate, and the House is the House, and the governor is the governor. We're different branches of government. It's interesting what he wants, and we may coincidentally deliver it, but we do not work for him. And we have our own plans.
And just what is this plan? Here's a little exchange with that same senator in Senate Finance.
I don't think taxes are going to get a lot of support. I think doing something with the earnings reserve will. We also have reserves. We have tremendous reserves. And we will go to the reserves at some level, as we have for the past, I don't know how many years. We've done it many, many times. We'll probably do that again. We do have money in savings accounts, and you can pay with for the budget with those savings accounts as you're trying to get to a smaller, smarter government.
First off, we get it. No one likes to pay taxes. But in this case, the reality of low oil revenue and some fairly simple math means we need an actual plan, man. Second, cutting government to the bone while you spend to a smaller government is not a plan. Appealing as though it may sound, it's kind of like a vegan cookie. You take away the eggs, the sugar, the butter. It stops being a f***ing cookie. Why am I even eating this thing? Now, some legislators like to call this a la carte approach a plan, because they're afraid to tell us the state can no longer afford to pave our roads, remove our snow, provide public safety, and educate our kids, all while writing us big fat checks. And because when they consider legislation, as they currently are, which touches the dividend or contemplates taxes, Alaskans tend to say things like this.
Yeah, I'm against this PFD takeover by politicians and state workers that's mismanaged the money all these years, and now they want to come and stick their hands in the people's pockets.
This is extremely upsetting to the people.
I'm so darn mad I can't see straight. It's not yours to squander.
These are my resources, and the only thing I get from them is a check from the permanent fund.
I challenge the legislature to go to the schools and ask 6-year-olds, do you want us to take your permanent fund so you can't have a bicycle for Christmas?
I will vote against anybody that votes for this, and I will give to parties that run against people out of my area. And I don't care if it's a drunken seagull, I'll give him money if he runs against them.
A drunken seagull? Really? You think we'd be better off? Well, I'm not going to say yes, but I'd never say no to you, Stephen. Look, here's the deal. I like to give politicians a hard time as much as the next guy. We all do. And sometimes it's just so damn easy. But for the most part, we try not to elect incapable people. The truth is, it's a really difficult job, and they're in a no-win situation. Talk about taxes, you lose. Touch the permanent fund, you lose. Do nothing, we all lose. How we plan to pay for government going forward is worthy of a healthy debate, for sure. But the one thing that is not up for debate is the need for an actual plan. And we'll do this now and talk about the rest later does not a plan make. Because it does not give Alaskans, rating agencies, or businesses any confidence that we have our collective together. And at the end of the day, that's what actually matters. One way or another, Alaskans are going to need to invest in the future of this state, just like every other state. And we, as citizens, need to speak up and support our legislators in making some of those difficult decisions sooner rather than later. Therefore, we offer these words of encouragement to pass a plan from actor Shia LaBeouf.
What are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it!
We encourage you to share this message with your friends, neighbors, and legislators. Thank you for watching.